The beeping of hospital machines was supposed to comfort me. Instead, it sounded like a countdown. Not to surgery, not to recovery. To the moment I finally stopped waiting for my family to care. The fluorescent lights above me blurred as a nurse pushed my bed down the long hallway. The wheels squeaked against the polished floor. My hospital gown felt paper-thin against the cold air, and my phone buzzed non-stop beside me. 27 missed calls from my mother. Funny how she had time to call after posting birthday photos with my sister all night long. I stared at the screen. Balloons, champagne glasses, smiling faces. My sister grinning beneath a banner that read, "Best birthday ever." Meanwhile, I was being rolled into surgery alone. The last text from Mom read, "We need to talk." Not, "Are you okay?" Not, "We're here." Not, "I love you." Just business. I locked my phone and stared at the ceiling. The truth was, the abandonment hurt less than I expected. Maybe because deep down, I'd spent years preparing for it. The nurse glanced down at me kindly. "Anyone waiting for you afterward?" I forced a smile. "No one worth mentioning." The operating room doors opened, and icy air rushed over me. The surgeon spoke softly, but his voice faded beneath the growing noise in my head. I closed my eyes. Not out of fear, out of clarity. Because somewhere between the birthday posts and the hospital forms, something inside me had changed. I stopped begging to be chosen. When I woke up, morning light spilled across the walls in pale gold stripes. The room was silent. No flowers, no cards, no family, just a nurse adjusting my IV with practiced kindness. "How are we feeling today?" she asked. I swallowed against the dryness in my throat. "Tired." Her eyes drifted toward the empty chair beside my bed. I hated the sympathy that crossed her face. "Your ride will be here soon?" I looked away. "No, I'll figure it out." The silence after that said everything. My phone lit up again. 53 unread messages now, the first one from Mom. "We need to discuss the insurance paperwork." Not, "How did surgery go?" The next from my sister. "You could have rescheduled." I stared at the words for a long moment before locking the screen again. Something about that message broke the final thread holding me to them. Not anger, not heartbreak. Clarity. By the time I got home to my tiny apartment, I already knew what I was going to do. I was done explaining my pain to people committed to misunderstanding it. So instead, I disappeared. Quietly, strategically, I stopped showing up. No family dinners, no birthday brunches, no just checking in phone calls. I left every group chat unread. On social media, I vanished completely. At first, no one noticed. Then they started noticing too much. Because when someone who's always available suddenly goes silent, people get curious. Especially family. Mom called constantly. "Why are you ignoring everyone?" My sister texted, "You're being dramatic." But I didn't argue anymore. I didn't defend myself. I simply let the truth sit where they left it. One evening, I posted a single photo online, a hospital wristband beside a cold cup of tea. Caption: "Recovery teaches you who actually shows up." No names, no accusations, but people understood. The comments flooded in. "What happened? Are you okay? Where was your family?" I didn't answer directly. I didn't need to. Because the people who truly cared started connecting the dots themselves. The first person I reached out to was Uncle Ray. He'd always remembered my birthday, even when nobody else did. I sent one message. "Did Mom tell you I had surgery?" His reply came almost instantly. "What surgery?" That's when the ripple began. An aunt in Texas, a cousin in Ohio, an old family friend from church. Each conversation went the same way. Shock, silence, disbelief. I never exaggerated. I simply told the truth. Yes, they knew. No, they didn't come. Yes, my sister still had her birthday dinner that night. The truth traveled farther than anger ever could. Soon, relatives stopped calling me for explanations. They started calling my parents. And suddenly, my family wasn't upset about my surgery anymore. They were upset about appearances. Mom finally confronted me a week later. "You're making us look terrible." I almost laughed. "No," I said calmly. "Your choices did that." Her voice sharpened immediately. "Family matters should stay private." I looked out the window at the city lights while she spoke. Funny how privacy only mattered when the truth became inconvenient. "You made it public," I said quietly, "the moment you celebrated while I was in surgery." She hung up on me, and for the first time in years, I didn't cry after one of our conversations. I just felt lighter. As the months passed, my life grew quieter. But quieter didn't mean smaller. It meant peaceful. I started volunteering more at a local women's shelter. The people there didn't ask me to shrink myself for comfort. They didn't demand silence to protect an image. They simply showed up, and little by little, I rebuilt myself around that kind of love instead. The funny thing about healing is that it doesn't arrive dramatically. It comes in tiny moments: making coffee in a calm apartment, laughing without checking your phone first, realizing an unanswered message no longer ruins your day. For the first time in my life, I began choosing myself without guilt, and people noticed. And the turning point came at a community charity gala. My mother used to dominate events like that: perfect dresses, perfect smile, perfect family image. This year, she wasn't the center of attention. I was invited instead. I wore a simple black dress and arrived beside the people who had quietly supported me through recovery. Mrs. Alvarez from the shelter hugged me tightly before we entered. "You look happy," she whispered, and I realized I actually was. Inside the ballroom, conversations paused as I walked by. Not because I was important, but because people finally saw me outside my family's shadow. Someone asked carefully, "How's your mother?" I smiled politely. "We're not very close these days." That was all it took. Because silence can reveal more than anger ever will. 2 days later, a photo from the gala appeared in the local paper. Me laughing beside volunteers from the shelter. My mother noticeably absent. Her text came within an hour. "You're humiliating this family." I stared at the message for a long time before deleting it. No response, no defense, just peace. Over the next year, my world expanded while theirs quietly shrank. I accepted leadership opportunities at the shelter. I moved into a brighter apartment downtown. I built friendships rooted in honesty instead of obligation. And slowly, people stopped asking about my family altogether. They started asking about me, what I wanted, what I believed in, what I was building. It felt unfamiliar at first, then freeing. The final step came on a rainy Tuesday morning at the county clerk's office. I changed my last name, not out of hatred, out of release. I chose my grandmother's maiden name instead. The woman who once told me, "You do not belong to people who only love you conditionally." When the new ID arrived in the mail weeks later, I stared at it for a long time. The name felt lighter, like a door finally closing behind me. I didn't announce the change publicly. I let them find out through other people, the same way they'd learned everything else lately. Secondhand. The months later, I was invited to receive a community service award for my work with the shelter. The ballroom glowed beneath chandeliers as the host called my new name across the stage. For one brief moment, the room went silent. Then came applause. I walked to the podium slowly, heart steady. And there, near the back of the room, sat my parents, older now, smaller somehow, watching the daughter they once ignored become someone they no longer understood. I adjusted the microphone and smiled gently. "I stand here tonight," I said, "because I learned something important during the hardest season of my life." The room grew still. Some people are born surrounded by support. Others have to build their own family through kindness, honesty, and resilience. I glance toward the volunteers at my table. And sometimes the people who save you aren't related to you at all. The applause that followed felt warm, genuine, not performative, not forced, real. After the ceremony, dozens of people stopped me to talk, to congratulate me, to share their own stories of rebuilding after disappointment. My parents never approached. And honestly, that was the moment I knew I'd healed, because I no longer needed the apology. I no longer needed them to understand. I no longer needed to win. The revenge I once imagined had transformed into something quieter and far more powerful. Freedom. Freedom from chasing approval. Freedom from explaining my pain. Freedom from people who only valued me when I stayed silent. That night, I stepped outside the ballroom and looked over the city lights stretching endlessly into the distance. For years, I thought losing my family would destroy me. Instead, it introduced me to myself, and that turned out to be the beginning of everything.